Theme parks and attractions are constantly pushing the boundary to see just how extreme they can go with their rides, and in this video I'm going to look at a selection which personally terrify me. Okay, so I'm going to start the list over in Orlando with what might seem like a normal ride. It is a Starflyer. I have been on Starflyers. There is one every year, comes to Edinburgh for the Christmas market. Generally speaking, I don't mind them. But this one in Orlando is 450 feet, which looks absolutely terrifying. Okay, so next up we have, well, the clue's in the name. It is a giant canyon swing, which, funnily enough, is a giant swing over a canyon. And it looks just bonkers. I have been on a few large swinging rides, but they've always been in a theme park where you're basically at ground level. This thing clearly swings you straight out over the edge. And yeah, just no thank you. Next, I've got a whole selection of rides, like a classification of rides in general, not a specific one, and that is slingshots. For me, just absolutely no chance. I've seen so many videos of people either passing out, or there have been many instances where there have been cables that have snapped. Just, it's one of those rides where I've gone past them a few times. You're not gonna get me on one of those. Okay, so you're gonna see a few rides on this list that are all situated on top of stupidly tall buildings. And the first one is the Edge Coaster. Now this, as I said, sits on top of a large hotel building. The ride itself isn't particularly fast. In fact, it kind of crawls around the track quite slowly. What's terrifying about this one is that you are in a car that is tilted over the edge, facing down. You are basically dangling, facing off the edge of this building. Nope. Okay, so there's some rides on this list that they're terrifying, but I would go on them, and there's other rides that are terrifying and there's no chance. This one I think I would go on, and that is Cloud Scraper. Now this is a gigantic zip line. I would love to do a zip line of this size, but it is over a huge gorge. The views would be absolutely spectacular. Your heart would be pumping in your chest. Terrifying, yes, looks fantastic. Next one on the list is a traveling ride, and it's the biggest of its kind, and it is visually stunning and terrifying at the same time, and that is Infinity. Now this is, I suppose it's like a giant gyro swing that does a full inversion, but as I said, it is the tallest and it just looks crazy. I don't know if I would go on that or not. Let me know if you would go on this ride. Next, there are 3 rides, and the reason that there are 3 is because they're all situated on top of the Strat in Vegas. The first one is Big Shot, which is an SNS tower. Now, I've done many SNS towers. The ride itself isn't terrifying, but placing it that far up on top of a building, that would be one hell of an experience. The second one is Insanity. Now, you've probably seen this one. It's kind of been around social media quite a lot, and that is kind of like a claw arm with seats that swings out over the edge of the building and then rotates, just with you dangling straight down off the edge of this building. Again, no. And the last one on the Strat, probably to me the scariest of 3, and that is Xcream. Now this is kind of like a seesaw ride with the train that just kind of slides forward, kind of comes up and then slides back down again. Does that a few times. However, as is to be expected with everything on the Strat, it's hanging off the edge. So you slide down this ramp and you hope those brakes are going to work. If you're enjoying this list, hit that like button. Let me know down below what you think of this list of scary rides. And yeah, have you been on any of these? I got one on the list here which I personally don't find this one particularly scary. I've done it many times, and that is the Smiler. Now the reason it's on this list is because I think to many people it is a scary ride, and I can see why, right? It is very intimidating theming, it has very creepy and sinister music, it has 14 inversions, which is still the most anywhere in the world. There's lots of kind of visual near misses. When you see that ride with multiple trains going around, it's like an orchestra. It is spectacular to see. It has the vertical lift. There's lots of elements of this that are creepy, and if you see some of the concept art before they actually built this ride, It was initially going to be like a mental institute and even more sinister. Although I have done this ride and I don't find the ride particularly scary, I think the whole package definitely gives a lot of people the fear. There's a ride here that it's on my bucket list, and I would love to get on this ride, but I think again it's a very intimidating ride, and that is X2. On the face of it, it looks like a wing coaster, but it is a wing coaster where the seats rotate depending on where you are around the track. So you could be facing up to the sky, facing down to the floor, you could be doing inversions as you go through these different elements. There's not very many of these. I believe this ride was one of the last by aerodynamics that kind of bankrupt them, and there have been some others since, but it's still a very unique experience, and nonetheless it's very intimidating, so this is on the list. And next up I've got another ride which is not the only one of its type, and that is Falcon's Fury over in Busch Gardens. Now, this is a drop tower. There obviously are many drop towers out there, and there are many that do this as well. This one, when you get to the top, tilts you so you're facing straight down. And then when it drops, it keeps you facing straight down until the end where you swing back out again. Not gonna catch me on that ride. The next ride type, I can't decide if I want to do this ride or not. And I'm curious what your opinion on this one is, and that is Vekoma's tilting coasters. Now there's only one of these I think currently in China and one opening soon in Cotaland over in America. That's a spectacular concept, right? You've basically got this coaster that goes out onto a track and then tilts slowly until it's facing perfectly down, and then it lines up with the next track, the brakes release, and off you go. Fantastic concept, visually amazing to look at. Don't know if I would go on it. I got another one here that is on my bucket list. It's a ride I would love to do. The reason that it's on the scariest ride is because if you've ever seen footage of anybody on this ride, their face is kind of like this because they're going insanely fast, and that is Formula Rosa over in Ferrariland in the Middle East. It is currently the fastest ride out there, looks fantastic, but also terrifying. I'm going to end this list with a ride that at the time of recording doesn't exist yet, insofar as it's being constructed. We don't quite know when the opening date for this ride is yet, and that is Falcons Flight over in Six Flags Qiddiya. And when this opens, this will be the longest, the tallest, the fastest, damn sure it's going to be the most expensive coaster ever built. This thing is a monster. It's 600 feet, so absolutely smashing the current record, King Ka, up in the 400s. This thing is going to blow everything out the water. It does look spectacular, but it does also look absolutely terrifying. I don't think that very many members of the general public are going to go on this. I think this is very much an enthusiast thing, or people who just love extreme rides. So it's definitely one of the scariest rides on my list. Okay, so there's a selection of terrifying rides around the world. I'd love to hear below what you think of this list, which ones you've been on, which ones you would go on, which ones there's no chance you're going anywhere near. I've mentioned a few times that there's some on my bucket list. Check that out up there. Hit like, hit subscribe. I've been Chris. You've been watching Coaster Dad. See you in the next one. Adios.